Hey everyone, I'm Natasha from The Artisan Life at www.natashalh.com, and today this video is an accompaniment to a blog post. So for a full materials list, please look below or visit the blog post, also linked up down below. But I'll be showing you how to do this fun little landscape here of a galaxy night sky with some cute minimalistic mountains. And I already have this prepped and ready to go, so we can jump straight into the embellishment after painting. So I'm going to demonstrate this wet into wet technique here using my chosen colors with a dark purple, a mauve, a pinkish purple, a blue, and a green. Use whatever paints you have on hand, but to see my paints, what I used, again, please check in the description below. So over here I have another rectangle of paper taped off to the same size, 2.5 by 3.5 inches, which is artist trading card size. And you can fit 4 of them, plus a little extra like for a bookmark on that 7 by 10 block there. Very handy. So before you wet your paper, make sure to go ahead and get your paints nice and juicy, mixed up so that they're wet but not too watered down, and that you don't have any lumps in there. Then we're going to add water to this, just a little sheen. You don't want it dripping, sopping wet. Clean water, and you may actually want to use a bigger brush for this part. And it can be very helpful to pick it up. Oh, see, my brush wasn't as clean as I thought it was. Oh well, that's the part that's going to be green anyway. Make sure to clean your brush really well after mixing the paints. I thought mine was clean, but life happens. Okay, so, oh my goodness, there's more on there. Let's try again. All right. The thing about watercolor is it's pretty loosey-goosey, and it has a mind of its own, and you know, you can't control watercolor. So whenever something unexpected happens, just go with it. There's a little bit of extra green on my paper now for this project. That's really not a problem, but you do want to try to get a nice clean brush and clean water. And you can see I'm lifting the page up. That makes it easier to see where you've placed your water because you get a little sheen. So mine is looking pretty wet. Now painting on the block is really good because the paper will start to buckle a little bit, even nice paper. As the fibers absorb water, they expand. Makes sense, right? So working on the block is really good. So what I'm going to do is come into my dark purple here and paint about the top quarter of the page. I'm doing a combination of dabbing, which puts more pigment on the paper, and a little bit of brushing down. Now, particularly when you're working with a paint that likes to move, as this mineral violet does, and or if you have wet paper, you'll start to see the paint collecting along the edges. And you don't want it to just run all the way down the side. So what you do is you clean your brush, you dry it off a little bit. This is called a thirsty brush, and you wick up along the edges. This is something really important to keep your painting looking nice when you're doing the wet into wet technique. Okay, I'm going to come back and add more paint. Oh, there's a little spot I missed with my water. More paint in a minute, but let's move into the mauve, this pinkish purple. Again, I'm going to tap. Tapping really lets a lot of that pigment come off. Now you may have noticed that I dip my brush in the paint, I tap off the tip there, and then I go in. There can be like a big bubble of water and pigment on your brush that, particularly as you start to add more to your page, it can cause the paint to blossom. This big splot will come and your pigment away. And if you want to do that on purpose, oh, here's where we're dripping down. That's great, but you don't want that to happen on accident. So as you go along, just keep an eye. There we go. Now I'm going to come into my turquoise Again, dabbing off the tip there. Since I already have my background that I'll be demonstrating the mountains on finished, I will see if I can create that kind of accident that I'm talking about. So you can see what I'm talking about there and what you don't want to have happen. Again, a combination of dabbing, and see how this paper is buckling here, even though it's a good paper. That is completely natural, normal. It will flatten out a bit, and you can also tape it down to a surface to help prevent that from happening. But that's why it's good to work on a block. Now here, to help encourage your colors to mix and mingle, you can lift your page. I love to paint standing up and to move my paper around. So I'm adding a little more of my dark purple. As long as your paper is wet, you can always add more. So what you can do is actually lift your page, particularly while it's wet, and you really have to watch your edges on this. Come in with that clean, mostly dry brush. And you can tilt it back and forth to really encourage your paints to mix and mingle. Now, since this is just a little demo to show the wet onto wet, let me see if I can create a problem. So let's say I have a wet brush and I drop some water on my painting. See how that just blossomed out like that? That can be an intentional effect. So if you like that and you want it, go for it. It can look cool, but you don't want it by accident. It kind of ruins your painting, right? If you wanted a nice smooth gradient there. And the same exact thing can happen with paint. If you have a big wet paint, let's see if this is wet enough. No, my paper is still wet enough to absorb that there. As your paper gets dry, if you try to come in and you have a big blob of paint, you can get a similar type effect. Looks like my paint is still wet enough to absorb that. Like I said, that can actually look really cool if it's intentional, but if it's unintentional, not so great. So just something to be on the lookout for. Your painting will continue to blend and mix as you go along, as it dries and as you add more. And it will also lose some saturation and vibrancy as it dries. This is totally normal and just the way that watercolor is. Okay, so now that I've demoed that wet into wet technique, we're going to hop on over to the painting that I have already done, so that we can take a look at those mountains. Okay, so here we are with the nice dry piece, and even though this is already drying some, you can see a vibrancy difference here. So it makes it a lot less stressful if you have a pencil and you sketch your mountains. What I like to do is make a mark about halfway, because you can always erase this, and then come in and draw your two outer mountains here, working from about that midpoint. There we go. And then our middle mountain. Now for the middle mountain, I like to make it a little bit narrower and taller. So let's see, come there, come about to the same point across, come on up. Okay, great. Now, realistically, your snow line on mountains is going to be pretty similar across the peaks, but, you know, it's a watercolor painting. We can do what we want to. So, I'm just going to give a little suggestion of where I want that to be. You don't have to draw that in if you don't want to, but there we go. Okay. So it's a lot less stressful if you're working with something that you can erase before you come in with your paint pen. Now I'm using an ultra fine pin nib Posca pen. You could absolutely use like a Sharpie paint pen, any other paint pen. You could use a thick tip micron pen, gel pen, many different things. So then just come in and draw your mountains. Okay, and then you can add in some shading if you'd like, just some little lines, then quick lines on one side, kind of running parallel to the side of the mountain. Just make them all on the same side. Just looks better if they're all on the same side there instead of, you know, kind of going back and forth. All right, so the Posca pen does actually need to dry for just a moment before you come in and erase lines, but it doesn't take long. Then, to do our fun splatter galaxy there, protect your work surface. So I'm using just pieces of cardstock. I want to protect the rest of my watercolor paper too, and actually this part as well. I've already torn up some pieces of paper. There we go. And what we're going to do, I'll need to protect my other painting, is we're going to make a V shape. So decide where you want the base of your galaxy to be and use pieces of paper, cardstock, paper towel to make a sort of V on your page, like so. I'm going to weight that down with the Posca pen. So there we have it. Now get your acrylic ink or even acrylic craft paint. Again, check my blog post for a lot of suggestions. A way that people like to do splatter is you use two brushes and you tap like this, and that works fine. But I love to use this old toothbrush. So what I'll do is get some ink. This does get messy though. I'll get some ink on my toothbrush. I'm just dropping it on and tapping off some excess. And if you've never done this before, you might want to practice first. That looks good. And then you come in and splatter. You get a nice little fine mist along with a few bigger pieces. Now you're going to have pretty harsh lines, and also if you look at a picture of a galaxy, there's some on my blog, you will see that there are other stars in the sky, right? It's not just there in the middle. So we're going to move the V out and add a little bit more. So we get some more stars, even more in the galaxy, and a little bit of stars out there. There we go. Oh, loud truck going by. And again, I'm going to open up even more and splatter a little bit more. And then here, let's see, I want to make sure that I get some over in this part. So again, blocking things off. Let's see what else we have going on. I want some more over here. Oh, I'm just getting a whole bunch of stars on this side, huh? One more down there, so just move around and play with it. Whoop! Gonna end up with a whole night sky there. That's okay. And so I'm gonna try to get this middle a little more concentrated again. Alright, well that one is a very different looking night sky, and I like them both. So that's all you have to do, just keep moving out as you go along. And then if you decide that you need more stars or some big stars or whatever, you can grab a white paint pen or a white gel pen. My poor backdrop is so covered in paint. You can always come in and add a few more large stars. So I'm going to do that, just dotting on here to add a bit more of that concentration back in the center. You could even draw planets, a moon, whatever you would like. And there you have it. There is your really cute, quick, and easy galaxy night sky. And of course, you can take off your tape and reveal your beautiful painting. Oh, gorgeous. So nice and crisp. You can do this a little bit larger to make some really cool greeting cards or some mini art for yourself or for a friend. Cut them with a paper cutter, use them as artist trading cards, whatever you would like. So thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate a thumbs up if you enjoyed and a subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment if there's any videos, other tutorials you would like to see in the future. And do make sure to stop by my blog post to see exactly what paints and paper I used, a full materials list, lots of other goodies. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.